The Echoed Face, Chapter 1, The Unsettling Reflection. The old house in Morristown, New Jersey, stood silent, draped in the quiet sorrow that had settled over Evelyn Reed's life. Her husband, Michael, gone too soon, had left behind a gaping wound in her soul and a house that felt too large, too empty. Now, her grandmother Edith, a woman of gentle wisdom and unspoken depths, had also passed, leaving Evelyn with the bittersweet task of sifting through a lifetime of memories, neatly packed in boxes. Evelyn, a pragmatic art restorer by trade, valued truth and tangible history, but the truth she was about to uncover would challenge everything she believed. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that amplifies silence, when Evelyn found the album. Tucked away in Edith's dusty attic, beneath layers of mothballed quilts, it was a heavy, leather-bound volume, its cover embossed with faded gold lettering. "Family Memories," it read. The pages were thick, yellowed with age, holding a collection of sepia-toned photographs, brittle at the edges. Evelyn, usually methodical, paused, her fingers tracing the faces of ancestors she vaguely recognized. Great-aunts with stern gazes, distant cousins in stiff collars. Then she turned a page, and her breath hitched. The world tilted on its axis. The photograph, taken in the early 1900s, showed a young woman, perhaps in her late teens or early 20s, standing by a picket fence. Her dress was simple, her hair swept up in a style long out of fashion. But her face was Evelyn's. Every curve of her lips, the exact tilt of her chin, the slight asymmetry of her eyebrows, the deep-set, inquisitive eyes. It was undeniably, uncannily Evelyn, a mirror image separated by a century. Evelyn gasped, her heart hammering against her ribs. She picked up the photo, turning it over, her fingers trembling. Nothing. No name, no date, no inscription. Just a faded image of a stranger who was undeniably her. This wasn't a family resemblance, a shared nose or a similar hairline. This was an exact replication, a ghost in the lens. But how? The photograph was taken decades before Evelyn was born, even before her grandmother Edith's birth. It was impossible. A trick of the light? A bizarre coincidence? A hallucination brought on by grief and exhaustion? She brought the photo downstairs, her mind reeling. She held it up to her own reflection in the hallway mirror. The resemblance was even more jarring. The same face stared back, one from the past, one from the present, separated by time, but not by features. She showed it to her best friend, Clara, a no-nonsense lawyer who rarely indulged in flights of fancy. Clara's eyes widened. "Evelyn, oh my God, is that you? From some old photo shoot? Or a filter?" "No," Evelyn whispered. "It's from my grandmother's album. It's from before I was born." Clara took the photo, scrutinizing it. "This is beyond coincidence, Ev. This is unsettling. Have you seen anything else like it?" Evelyn shook her head, her mind awhirl. The emptiness she had always felt, that indefinable void, now seemed to twist into a strange, unsettling clarity. Could this be it? The missing piece? But what kind of piece? A genetic echo? A whisper of reincarnation? Her pragmatic mind screamed against the mystical, but the evidence, stark and irrefutable, lay in her hand. The echoed face, a silent question from the past, demanded an answer. Chapter 2, Whispers from the Past. The photograph became an obsession. Evelyn couldn't shake the image of the woman who looked exactly like her, a ghost from the past. She showed it to other friends, to distant relatives she barely knew. Their reactions were uniformly the same: shock, disbelief, and an undeniable confirmation of the uncanny resemblance. It wasn't her grief playing tricks on her. It was real. She returned to the attic, meticulously sifting through every box, every album, every loose paper. She was no longer just clearing out Edith's belongings. She was searching for answers, for any clue that could explain the impossible. Beneath a stack of old lace doilies, in the same cedar chest where she found the album, Evelyn discovered a small, leather-bound notebook. It was faded and worn, its pages thin. Edith's elegant script filled the first few pages, a record of household expenses, gardening notes, and gentle reflections. But tucked within its pages, folded and brittle, was a single yellowed piece of paper. It wasn't dated, nor signed. Evelyn's heart pounded as she unfolded it. The script was Edith's, unmistakable. The short, cryptic note. Some faces return, Ev. Like the tides, they come back to shore. Don't be afraid of what you see. Some things are simply meant to be remembered, and sometimes remembered to be finished. The light will show you the way. Ev. Edith had called Evelyn Ev her entire life. This note was clearly meant for her. It was as if Edith, knowing her time was short, had left this breadcrumb, the posthumous whisper, guiding Evelyn towards the truth. Some faces return. Edith knew. She had seen the photograph, she understood its significance, and she had waited for Evelyn to find it. Evelyn remembered fragments of conversations with Edith over the years. Her grandmother, though outwardly conventional, sometimes spoke of strange coincidences, of dreams that felt like memories, of a feeling that life was a circle, not a line. Evelyn had always dismissed it as charming eccentricity. Now it felt like a deliberate attempt to prepare her. She focused her search on the early 1900s, trying to trace the roots of her family. Edith's family had come from a small, rural town in central Pennsylvania called Willow Creek, known for its rolling farmlands and quiet, close-knit community. Evelyn found a few old letters from Edith's mother, written in the 1920s, that spoke of the troubles after the flu epidemic and a great sorrow that had afflicted the community. There were hints of a young woman who had died prematurely, a tragedy that had deeply impacted Edith's family. The name mentioned was Sarah. Sarah, the name clicked in Evelyn's mind. Could this be the woman in the photograph? Evelyn decided to visit Willow Creek. The journey felt strangely familiar, as if she were driving towards a place she already knew. The small town was nestled in a valley, surrounded by ancient, quiet farms. The general store, the old stone church, the winding creek. It all felt like a scene from a faded photograph. A profound sense of déjà vu washed over her. It was as if she had been there before, walked these streets, seen these faces. The quiet emptiness inside her began to stir, to recognize something. She visited the local historical society, a small, dusty room filled with yellowed newspapers and meticulously kept ledgers. The elderly volunteer, Mrs. Henderson, a kind woman with bright, inquisitive eyes, was initially skeptical. Evelyn Reed, you say, and your grandmother was Edith? Oh, I remember the Millers. Good folk. But a picture from the early 1900s looking just like you? That's quite a story, dear. Evelyn, however, was persistent. She explained her findings, the uncanny resemblance, Edith's cryptic note. Mrs. Henderson, a lover of local lore, listened with growing fascination. Well, Mrs. Henderson finally said, her eyes twinkling, there was a Sarah Miller, died very young during the flu epidemic of 1918. A real tragedy. She was a beautiful girl, they say, very bright, and some folks believed she had a kind of second sight. Second sight. The words echoed Edith's whispers. A shiver ran down Evelyn's spine. Do you have any more information about her? diaries, letters? Mrs. Henderson led her to a locked cabinet. Sarah Miller's family donated some of her belongings years ago. Her father was a bit of a scholar. There's a box full of her things. Inside the box, nestled amongst dried flowers and faded ribbons, Evelyn found it. A small leather-bound diary, its cover worn smooth with age. Engraved on the front, in delicate script, was a single name, Sarah. The woman in the photograph, the echo of her own face. The past had finally revealed its voice. Chapter 3. The Diary of a Seer. Sarah's diary was a portal, a direct link to a life lived a century before Evelyn's own. Its pages, fragile and yellowed, were filled with a graceful, flowing script describing a world both familiar and utterly alien. Sarah, a young woman of sharp intellect and deep sensitivity, chronicled her daily life in Willow Creek, the changing seasons, the hardships of farm life, the simple joys of community, and her dreams of a life beyond the valley. But intermingled with these mundane entries were passages that made Evelyn's blood run cold, then hot with a strange, exhilarating recognition. Sarah's second sight. Her dreams. August 12th, 1910. The dreams come again, like whispers from beyond the veil. So vivid. A world of bright lights and flying carriages, and faces I do not know, yet they feel familiar. There is a woman, she looks like me, yet wears strange clothes. She has a curious device in her hand, talking to it. She calls a name, Ev. It makes my heart ache with a longing I cannot explain. Evelyn read the entry, her hands trembling. Ev. Sarah had seen her. A century ago, she had dreamed of Evelyn, spoken her name. It was not coincidence. It was a connection, a profound, mystical bond. As Evelyn continued to read, Sarah described other dreams, chillingly accurate predictions of future events. The looming shadow of a great war, the devastating flu epidemic that would sweep through their community, the advent of radio and television, the first automobiles, the rise of a certain famous historical figure. She never understood what she was seeing, simply recorded them as vivid, often terrifying visions. November 3rd, 1917. The world is on the brink. I see shadows, darkness across the sea, and a sickness, a terrible cough that steals breath. I see faces contorted in pain. Our town, Willow Creek, many will fall. I pray these are but nightmares. The entry was a haunting premonition of the 1918 Spanish flu, which had indeed decimated Willow Creek and taken Sarah's own life. Evelyn remembered her grandmother Edith mentioning the tragedy, the great sorrow that had touched their family. Sarah's diary was not just a record of her life. It was a testament to her prophetic abilities, a silent scream across time. But the most profound entries were those directly addressing Evelyn, as if Sarah knew, with uncanny certainty, that her diary would one day be found by her future echo. To the one who carries my face, who breathes my breath 100 years hence, do not fear the dreams. They are echoes, not curses. Our connection is not a burden, but a path. I see you, Ev. I see your sorrow. I see the loss that haunts you. But there is meaning, a purpose to our shared visage. Find the unfinished business. Find the truth buried in the earth, and you will find peace. Unfinished business. Truth buried in the earth. Sarah's words were a direct plea, a command from beyond the grave. Evelyn felt a profound responsibility. Sarah hadn't just been a seer, she had been a guide, leaving breadcrumbs through time, waiting for Evelyn to pick them up. Evelyn, still reeling from the diary, found a local historian, Professor Arthur Finch, an eccentric but brilliant man specializing in local legends and paranormal phenomena. He had a reputation for an open mind, for seeking the unseen threads of history. Professor Finch listened to Evelyn's story with rapt attention, his eyes alight with intellectual curiosity. He examined the photograph, then the diary, his fingers tracing Sarah's elegant script. "Ms. Reed," he finally said, his voice hushed, "this is extraordinary. I've studied cases of genetic memory, of historical echoes, of what some cultures call reincarnation without literal reincarnation. But this is a direct communication, a soul speaking across time." He explained that while scientific consensus on reincarnation was non-existent, there were documented cases of uncanny resemblances across generations, of shared dreams or inexplicable talents. Some believed in soul groups or karmic ties that manifested in recurring features or destinies. Sarah Miller, Professor Finch continued, was known in local folklore, not widely but whispered, the dreamer girl. They said she saw things, prophetic visions, but her death, so young, so sudden during the flu, it silenced her. Perhaps she had a message, a warning, something she needed to convey that she couldn't finish in her own lifetime. "Unfinished business," Evelyn murmured, recalling Sarah's diary entry. "Precisely." Professor Finch said, "She's reaching out, and you, Ms. Reed, are the vessel for her message. The echoed face is not just a coincidence, it's a profound connection, urging you to complete a cycle, to fulfill a destiny that was interrupted." The professor then guided Evelyn to a specific passage in Sarah's diary, one that spoke of a hidden injustice, a secret buried beneath the old oak tree near the abandoned Miller farm. Sarah wrote of a young man, Daniel, whom she loved, and a betrayal that led to his ruin or his forced departure. She couldn't act, couldn't reveal the truth before the epidemic took her. This was the unfinished business, the truth buried in the earth, the light that would show Evelyn the way. Chapter 4, The Betrayal Beneath the Oak. The diary of Sarah Miller had become Evelyn's guiding star, a chilling yet comforting presence in her life. The entries about Daniel, the young man Sarah loved, were filled with tender longing, but also with a growing sense of dread. Sarah described Daniel as a kind, ambitious farmer, a dreamer who had plans to buy his own land, to build a future. But then, a shadow fell over their love. September 15th, 1917, Daniel is accused. A terrible lie, woven by wicked tongues. He stands accused of stealing from Mr. Albright, the wealthy landowner. But I know his heart. He would never. My soul cries out against this injustice. Yet I am powerless. The truth is buried, like a seed that will not sprout. Mr. Albright. The name evoked a sense of unease. Evelyn remembered Edith mentioning him in passing, a powerful, ruthless man who owned most of the land in Willow Creek, a patriarch whose reputation for shrewdness often bordered on cruelty. Sarah's diary detailed her desperate attempts to clear Daniel's name. She had seen glimpses in her dreams, a forged document, a hidden stash of money, a desperate man fleeing. But no one believed her visions. Daniel was convicted, his reputation ruined, and he was forced to leave Willow Creek, disgraced. Sarah was heartbroken, her spirit crushed by the injustice. She died during the flu epidemic, her last entries filled with sorrow and a yearning for truth to be revealed. The truth buried in the earth. The phrase echoed in Evelyn's mind. Sarah had seen something, known something that could have saved Daniel, and it was connected to the old oak tree mentioned in the diary, a landmark on the abandoned Miller farm, now overgrown and neglected. Evelyn, with Professor Finch's guidance, secured permission to investigate the old Miller farm. It was a sprawling, desolate property, the farmhouse crumbling, the barn leaning precariously. The old oak tree, massive and ancient, stood sentinel in a forgotten corner of the property, its gnarled branches reaching towards the sky like twisted arms. The air around the tree felt heavy, charged with a lingering sorrow. Evelyn felt an inexplicable pull towards its roots, a subtle hum of energy that resonated with the void she had always felt. Following Sarah's cryptic clues in the diary, a specific number of paces from the stone well, a certain angle towards the setting sun, Evelyn began to dig. The ground was hard, resistant. Sweat beaded on her brow. She worked for hours, fueled by a strange sense of purpose, a feeling that Sarah was guiding her hand. Finally, her shovel hit something solid. Not rock, but wood. She unearthed a small, rotting wooden box, buried deep beneath the roots of the oak. It was old, waterlogged, but miraculously, its contents were protected by layers of oilcloth. Inside, Evelyn found a small, rusted tin, and within the tin, a bundle of faded letters tied with a thin, frayed ribbon, and a small, leather-bound ledger. The letters were from Daniel, written to Sarah from a distant, unknown town, filled with despair and declarations of innocence. He spoke of being framed, of Mr. Albright's ruthless ambition, of a specific sum of money that had been planted to incriminate him. The ledger, however, was the true revelation. It was Mr. Albright's personal ledger, meticulously kept, and tucked within its pages, Evelyn found a smaller hidden compartment. Inside, a crisp new $100 bill, dated 1917, and a signed, undeniable confession from Albright's overseer, a man named Thomas Blackwood. Blackwood admitted to forging Daniel's signature, to planting the money in Daniel's barn, and to testifying falsely against him. All at Mr. Albright's direct instruction. Albright had wanted Daniel's land, coveted for its rich soil, and had used the false accusation to drive Daniel away, acquiring the property for a pittance. The letter was dated just days before Sarah's death. She had known. She had seen it in her dreams. The truth, buried for a century, had finally surfaced. Evelyn held the evidence in her trembling hands. The injustice, the heartbreak, the stolen lives, it all came rushing at her. Sarah's unfinished business. The truth buried in the earth. It was real. And now, Evelyn had to find a way to right a century-old wrong. Chapter 5. Echoes of Justice. The discovery of Albright's ledger and Blackwood's confession was a revelation that transcended time. It wasn't just a historical artifact. It was a cry for justice from the past, a mission passed down through a century of silence. Evelyn felt the weight of it, the profound responsibility to clear Daniel's name, to bring peace to Sarah's restless spirit. Professor Finch, upon examining the documents, was awestruck. "Ms. Reed," he declared, his voice filled with reverence, "this is an extraordinary historical find and a powerful vindication. Daniel's story, now intertwined with Sarah's, is a testament to the enduring power of truth." They decided to present the evidence to the local historical society and, more importantly, to the descendants of Daniel. Mrs. Henderson at the Historical Society, a woman of deep local knowledge, helped Evelyn trace Daniel's lineage. It was a difficult task. Daniel, disgraced, had left Willow Creek and largely disappeared from public records. but through diligent research, they found a distant relative, a great-grandson named Elias Vance, living in a quiet suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was an elderly man, nearing 90, who had grown up hearing fragmented, hushed stories about his ancestor Daniel, tales of a family shame, of a man wrongly accused but with no proof. Evelyn arranged a meeting with Elias. She brought the old photograph of Sarah, a vivid counterpoint to her own living face. Then she laid out the diary, the letters, the ledger, and Blackwood's confession. Elias listened, his face a mask of disbelief and profound emotion. When Evelyn spoke of Sarah, of her love for Daniel, and her tragic, unfulfilled quest for justice, Elias's eyes filled with tears. "My great-grandmother, she always said Daniel was innocent. She carried that burden. But no one believed her. No one ever found the proof." Elias, overwhelmed, looked at the photograph of Sarah, then back at Evelyn. The resemblance, it's uncanny. It's like looking at a ghost, but a benevolent one, a messenger. Together, Evelyn and Elias, with the support of Professor Finch, presented the evidence to the local authorities and the Historical Society in Willow Creek. The small town was rocked by the revelation. The legacy of Mr. Albright, long revered as a shrewd businessman, was irrevocably tarnished. The injustice against Daniel, buried for a century, was finally acknowledged. A formal posthumous exoneration was granted to Daniel, clearing his name and restoring his dignity. The Historical Society established a small exhibit dedicated to Daniel and Sarah, a testament to their enduring love and the power of truth. It included Sarah's diary, a copy of Blackwood's confession, and a replica of the iconic photograph. For Evelyn, the act of clearing Daniel's name brought a profound sense of peace. She had completed Sarah's unfinished business. She had given voice to a love story cut short by injustice. The void within her, once a vague ache, now felt filled, not by Michael, but by a sense of purpose and connection to a deeper, more profound narrative. But the most personal impact was on Evelyn herself. She now understood the echoed face not as a burden, but as a gift. It was a tangible link to a past life, a past soul that resonated with her own. She began to explore other historical mysteries, using her unique connection to the past, her ability to intuitively sense the unfinished business of long-gone lives. She felt a kinship with Sarah, a shared destiny that transcended death. Her grief for Michael, her husband, still lingered, a quiet sorrow. But it was no longer a suffocating emptiness. The discovery of Sarah and the purpose it gave her had transformed her grief into a profound understanding of life cycles, of the enduring nature of connection, and of the idea that some souls and some faces truly do return. Evelyn spent quiet hours at the old Miller farm, sitting beneath the ancient oak tree, now a symbol of truth and remembrance. She would talk to Sarah, a silent conversation across time, sharing her experiences, her newfound peace. She brought flowers to the tree, a simple offering of gratitude and connection. The mystery of the echoed face had not been a curse, but a profound blessing. It had led her not only to a historical truth, but to a deeper understanding of herself, her place in the grand tapestry of time, and the extraordinary connections that bind us all, even across centuries. Evelyn Reed, the pragmatic art restorer, had become the guardian of a forgotten past, a bridge between two worlds, her own face now a living testament to the powerful echoes of time. Chapter 6: Threads of Time Woven Anew. The exoneration of Daniel was a public vindication, but the deepest healing occurred in the quiet moments, in the newfound understanding that permeated Evelyn's life. The void that had haunted her for so long was finally filled, not by a tangible presence, but by the profound resonance of Sarah's spirit within her own. The echoed face was no longer a mystery to be solved, but a truth to be embraced. Evelyn found herself returning to Willow Creek often, not just for the historical exhibit, but for the tangible connection it offered to Sarah. She befriended Elias Vance, Daniel's great-grandson, and together, they meticulously researched Daniel's life after his forced departure. They discovered he had indeed rebuilt his life far from Willow Creek, never marrying, but living a quiet, dignified existence, always carrying the unjust stain on his name. Elias found old letters from Daniel, expressing a lifelong regret for not having cleared his name, and a lingering love for my Sarah, whom he never forgot. The cycle of their love, cut short by lies, now had a poignant, albeit belated, closure. Evelyn also continued her work with Professor Finch. Their shared journey had forged a unique bond of mutual respect. He introduced her to other researchers, scholars who explored unexplained phenomena, historical anomalies, and the subtle energies that seemed to connect past and present. Evelyn, once a skeptic, now approached these discussions with an open mind, her own experience a living testament to the inexplicable. She found a new purpose in her life, dedicating her skills as an archivist and restorer to uncovering other unfinished businesses hidden in historical records, giving voice to forgotten injustices, and helping others find connections to their own mysterious pasts. The house in Morristown, once a silent reminder of loss, slowly transformed into a space of vibrant energy. Evelyn filled it with light, with books on history and spirituality, with new art that reflected her evolving understanding of life's intricate tapestry. She found comfort in the quiet contemplation of Sarah's diary, not as a historical document, but as a living conversation across time. She would speak to Sarah silently, sharing her day, seeking guidance, or simply expressing gratitude for the profound gift she had received. Her grief for Michael, her husband, still lingered, a tender ache rather than a raw wound. But it was no longer a solitary burden. The discovery of Sarah and the understanding of the cyclical nature of existence brought a new perspective. She realized that while physical presence might be fleeting, love and connection, like the echoed faces, could transcend the boundaries of time and mortality. She found comfort in the idea that perhaps in some mysterious way, Michael's spirit was also part of this grand, unseen tapestry. Evelyn understood that her connection to Sarah wasn't a literal reincarnation in a traditional sense. Rather, it was a profound resonance, a shared frequency of soul that manifested in physical form and a karmic alignment to complete a past injustice. It was a testament to the idea that some stories are so powerful, so vital, that they demand to be heard, even if it takes a century and a new face to tell them. She started a small online project, sharing her story and inviting others who had experienced uncanny resemblances or inexplicable connections to the past to share theirs. It became a community for those who felt the whispers of history in their own lives, a safe space for exploring the liminal space between what is known and what is felt. One crisp autumn evening, Evelyn sat on her porch swing, gazing at the stars. The air was cool, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. She held Sarah's diary in her lap, its worn leather a familiar comfort. She closed her eyes, picturing Sarah, standing by the picket fence, her face so like Evelyn's own, her eyes filled with dreams of a future she could only glimpse. Evelyn whispered, "Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for showing me the way. Thank you for giving me purpose. Thank you for filling the void." She opened her eyes, and in the dark expanse of the night sky, she felt not just the presence of stars, but the profound, limitless connection to the past, to Sarah, to Michael, to the intricate, beautiful, and endlessly mysterious dance of existence. The echoed face, once a source of unsettling fear, had become a beacon of light, guiding her through the intricate labyrinth of time and identity, and finally bringing her home to herself. Chapter 7. The Continuum of Self. Years passed. Evelyn Reed continued her work, not just as an art restorer, but as a quiet chronicler of lives interwoven with the past. Her small online project grew, a testament to the countless individuals who sensed an inexplicable connection to history, to faces in old photographs, to places that felt hauntingly familiar. She became a compassionate listener, a guide for those navigating their own journeys into the echoes of time. Her bond with Sarah, the woman whose face she carried, deepened into something profound, almost mystical. Evelyn no longer thought of it as merely a historical connection. It was a continuum of self. She felt Sarah's resilience, her quiet wisdom, her artistic leanings resonate within her own being. It was as if Sarah's essence had, in some inexplicable way, imprinted itself upon Evelyn's soul, guiding her, strengthening her. The void was not simply filled, it was transformed into a wellspring of inner strength and understanding. The exhibit in Willow Creek, dedicated to Daniel and Sarah, thrived. It became a quiet pilgrimage site for those touched by stories of injustice and enduring love. Elias Vance, Daniel's great-grandson, became a dear friend to Evelyn, their shared lineage creating a bond that transcended generations. He often spoke of a sense of peace that had finally settled over his family, a liberation from the lingering shadow of Daniel's false accusation. Evelyn also found unexpected solace in her continuing dialogue with Professor Finch. His scholarly approach, combined with his open-mindedness to the inexplicable, provided a grounding perspective. He introduced her to theories of morphic resonance, of collective consciousness, of the idea that echoes of past events and personalities can imprint themselves on the fabric of reality, resurfacing under specific conditions. While these theories remained speculative, they offered a framework for understanding the profound phenomenon Evelyn had experienced. Her grief for Michael, her husband, evolved. It no longer consumed her, but became a gentle reminder of the love they had shared. She understood that life was a continuous cycle of endings and beginnings, of transformations and renewals. The profound truth she had uncovered about Sarah and Daniel had given her a unique perspective on existence itself. She found beauty in impermanence and comfort in the enduring nature of connection, even beyond the veil of physical presence. Evelyn often reflected on Edith, her grandmother. She realized that Edith had been more than just a quiet keeper of secrets. She had been a subtle guardian, planting the seeds of truth, waiting for the right moment, for the right person to discover them. Edith's cryptic note, "The light will show you the way," had been a profound act of faith, a legacy of truth passed down through generations, waiting for its ultimate recipient. The house in Morristown, once a silent monument to loss, now hummed with a quiet energy, a living space that honored both past and present. Evelyn filled it with art that spoke to her soul, with books that delved into the mysteries of time and consciousness. She hosted small gatherings, not of socialites, but of kindred spirits, individuals who believed in the power of stories, in the interconnectedness of lives, and in the enduring magic that lay beneath the surface of the ordinary. She still revisited the old Miller farm in Willow Creek, the ancient oak tree, now stronger, more majestic, felt like a sacred sentinel guarding the echoes of a love story, a place of profound truth. She would sit there, bathed in the dappled sunlight, and feel Sarah's presence, not as a ghost, but as a living, breathing part of her own essence. The journey had been arduous, fraught with disbelief, sorrow, and moments of existential questioning. But Evelyn emerged from it transformed. She was no longer just Evelyn Reed, the art restorer who had lost her husband. She was Evelyn Reed, the woman who carried the echoed face, the keeper of a century-old secret, the one who had brought justice to the past and found profound meaning in her own life. Her experience taught her that identity was not just about bloodlines or personal history, but about the deeper, unseen threads that connected souls across time. She understood that the past was not truly gone. It simply manifested in different forms, in recurring faces, in haunting dreams, in a relentless urge for truth. And sometimes it manifested as a profound, unwavering sense of purpose, guiding one's life towards a destiny that was, in some mysterious way, always meant to be. The echo of a missing half had become the completeness of her own soul, a testament to the timeless dance of life, love, and the enduring power of the human spirit.